Hello, my name is Steffen Oppel. I work at the RSPB Center for Conservation Science and will try to convince you that the high mortality of juvenile Egyptian vultures on their first autumn migration is a consequence of declining populations. Egyptian vultures are globally threatened because their populations are declining worldwide, and on the Balkan Peninsula the declines are currently very rapid, with about 7% per year. In 1980 there were about 600 pairs on the Balkan Peninsula, but now there's less than 100. Egyptian vultures are the only long-distance migrant of the 4 vulture species that breed in Europe, and mortality along the flyway and on wintering grounds can contribute to these population declines, but we first need to find out where and why mortality occurs. To find out where birds are dying, we track the migration of 18 juvenile birds with satellite transmitters. This map shows the migration routes of these birds to their wintering areas in eastern Africa. The tracks are color-coded. The red tracks are those of birds that migrated successfully to Africa. The black tracks are those of birds that died on migration. As you can see, all 8 birds that migrated around the eastern margin of the Mediterranean arrived safely in African wintering areas, but 9 out of 10 birds that tried to cross the Mediterranean died along the way. Mortality was exclusively associated with poor navigation. Birds from western breeding areas had a much higher probability to die, and in fact no juvenile from a nest west of 22 degrees longitude survived the first migration. We speculate that this pattern of mortality might represent a positive feedback loop of a declining population, where the mortality of juvenile first-time migrants increases as a consequence of the decreasing population. How would this happen? Egyptian vultures do not migrate in family groups or big flocks, but they do congregate at feeding or roosting areas, and juveniles often follow experienced migrants, a pattern that is also known in other soaring migrants. In the past, when there were more than 200 pairs breeding in Greece alone, it was presumably quite easy for a young Egyptian vulture to find and follow some experienced migrant. Today, with now only 12 breeding pairs in the entire country, the chance of encountering an experienced migrant is much smaller. We therefore believe that due to the reduced population size, more and more juveniles will have to follow their migratory instincts and attempt their first autumn migration without guidance by experienced migrants because they can't find them. This will work fairly well for the birds breeding in the eastern part of the Balkan Peninsula, because if they head south, they get to the Bosporus and into Turkey, and they can follow the coastline around the Mediterranean. But the birds from central and western Greece and Albania have a much more complex migratory journey, because they need to depart into a northeasterly direction to fly around the north coast of the Aegean Sea. If they head straight south, they will follow the Peloponnese onto Crete, but are then faced with a more than 250 kilometer crossing of the Mediterranean to reach the north coast of Africa, and that might simply be too far for a soaring migrant like Egyptian vultures. If you would like to learn more about this story or share your views on this pattern of mortality, I'd be happy to talk to you in more detail. Thank you very much for your attention.